something that appeared in the JTA bulletin on July 6th, 1981. Bernard-Henri Lévy, regarded as one of the most prominent young writers and philosophers in France, told a press conference here that anti-Semitism is not a new phenomenon in his country, but an integral part of French culture. He said that while it is not true that there is more anti-Semitism than there was in the past, it now takes a different form. 36 years later, we have a chance to talk about, I think, the same subject. In your new book, The Genius of Judaism, you describe a French Jewry squeezed between a resurgent right and rising Islamist, a rising Muslim population that often targets Jews. You write in your book, is the hate machine running at such a speed that the Jews have already lost and have no choice but to leave? So I'll start by asking you that question, your own question. The Jews have no choice but to leave.
Of course not. They have no choice but to stay and to fight. And if some have to leave, it is not the Jews in Europe, it is anti-Semites. They are the ones who have to leave. They are the ones who don't have their full place in France. They are the ones who did not build France and Europe, but are in the process of unbuilding it. So, of course, the Jews have not to leave. What depresses me, thank you, but there is one thing which I don't want to applaud at all. There is something very depressing happening now. 36 years ago, the situation was the same. I probably identified the new guise of anti-Semitism who will face in the same way I would do it today. I do it today in the Genius of Judaism. This is so, it says so much things about our, in a way, the failure of our generation. This is terrible. I did not know about this interview to the JTA, and it means that our forces, our influence, even if we are goodwillers, is terribly limited. It's okay.
But you have two forces right now. We have the resurgent right, represented by the National Front, and you have a large Muslim population that, I don't know if you call it anti-Semitism or anti-Zionism, or that maybe there's no difference. Right now, what concerns you the most, if there was a choice, or is there no choice?
There is no choice because they are working in a way together. One of the most open secrets of French actuality and European actuality is that the extreme right and the extreme left, the anti-Semitism of the two sides, work in the same way, use the same tools, and adopt the same rhetoric. At the end of the day, it is the same. And you know, I remember Jean-Marie Le Pen, the founder of Front National, endorsing and embracing the rise of the jihadist Islamism in Algeria. He said that he felt indulgence, he felt a form of friendship for the claim for identity of the terrorist killers of Islamist ideology. So it is the same. It is like the two jaws of a same death mask, and we should not separate them. The other thing which make them mixable is that they are both of them the object of the same will not to see. In France and in Europe in general, there is a will to say that the extreme right has changed, that it is no longer anti-Semite, that they are de-diabolized. This is for the French right. It's very difficult in France to say that Front National has the same DNA, that it has not fundamentally changed. On the other side...
Despite the fact that Marine Le Pen's father is no longer part of the party. Is that
yes, despite the fact that when you see the track record of Marine Le Pen herself, he thinks like the father. I could give you many examples. the way she attacked recently the head of a big French company, Franco-American, by the way, called Publicis, the advertisement company Publicis, which happens to be owned partly by a French Jewish family. She attacked the leadership of Publicis on an anti-Semitic way, with an anti-Semitic bias. After that, there is many examples. She was interviewed by Haaretz about what she had to say about the anti-Jewish laws of October 1940. And this woman, who never loses one occasion to bash her own country, to say all the evil she believes she has in her heart regarding the current French diplomacy, for example, she suddenly said, I'm sorry, but I cannot express any word about France regarding October 40 when I am abroad. So the program has not changed. On the other side, there is, regarding the anti-Semitism having roots in parts of the Muslim community, there is also a will not to see. There is also a culture of excuse. There is also a way to liquidate, to dilute the anti-Semitism in sociology, in the supposed or real miserable situations of the people who express this anti-Semitism. And you can say and repeat that the most vocal and eloquent anti-Semite of Muslim origin are generally not the most miserable. You can say and repeat that, for example, the big jihadists were very often coming from big and wealthy family. It does not change. I remember our friend just quoted my book, Who Killed Daniel Pearl? It was so difficult when I wrote this book, Who Killed Daniel Pearl, it was a book about the brave American hero who was Daniel Pearl, and it was also a book about his executioners and about Al-Qaeda. It was probably one of the first investigation close to the mouth of the devil about Al-Qaeda. It was 2002. And I came across the personal family story of the chief of the executioner, Omar Sheikh. He's the man who brainstormed the whole thing, who organized the kidnapping, who did not hold the knife. This was done probably by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, but he planned. It was so hard to make understand in Europe that this boy, this man, was coming from a good family, perfectly integrated in England, that he was a former pupil of the London School of Economics, which is, you know, what is London School of Economics. It was so hard to have this go through in a country where the commonplace was that the anti-Semites, killers of Jews, were necessarily poor, distressed, abandoned victim of racist men. So we have these two wings of anti-Semitism in Europe with this common will not to see. If you look now to America, I'm sorry to say, but you all know that better than I. I'm in front of a very fine crowd of great journalists. You know that in America today, there is also a renewal of anti-Semitism coming from the two sides. On one side, you are aware more than anyone of the millions of tweets, anti-Semite tweeters wishing for the reopening of Oven for Jews, claiming about the inexistence of Holocaust and so on, following, let's say, November, December, and last January, on one side. You know what echo has had among certain Americans the motto, America First. You remember Mr. Duke saying, we made it, when he read in the New York Times, the just elected president using the motto America First, being warned by the journalist of the New York Times, being warned, be careful, Mr. Elected President, America First, I'm sure you make a slip of the tongue. You know what it means. The elected president said, I may know or not what it means, but I don't look to the past, I look to the future, and he resumed on and on till the inauguration day to speak of America First. So one side, there is this. The other side, you have BDS, which JTA reports regularly in a great and accurate way, which is a tool for another tool for another form of rhetoric of anti-Semitism. I'm sorry to say that BDS is a French phenomenon, but also an American phenomenon. You have, especially on the West Coast, some universities. I was there recently in front of big audiences where I had to reply to people endorsing the BDS movement as if it were a peaceful, democratic, and anti-totalitarian movement. I was surprised to see how deep-rooted it was also on this side of the, as my wife would say, the Atlantic River. Mm-hmm. On this side of the Atlantic River. She just made a record, a CD called The Atlantic River, so that's why. Ariel Dombal, she's here.
So in some ways, I see your book as an argument aimed at humanists on the left, trying to win them over to your, I would say, pro-Israel, anti-Semitic side. So do you feel, and the book feels like a cri de coeur to try to reach out to that audience. Do you think you're being heard when you try to create a pro-Israel and yet humanist and yet left-wing argument for the country?
Apparently not so much, according to my 1981 interview. But I do my best, and it is true that it is not a calculation. I am not at all. I am a liberal in the American sense. I am a leftist in the French sense. I believe in human rights. I believe in secularity. I was one of the founders of SOS Racism in France, which commitment was to fight against racism, mainly against French of Arab origin. And I love Israel. And I think that Israel is part of my identity. And I believe that Israel is a part of the identity of most Jews in the world, even when they are anti-Israel, and even when they believe that Israel is the most terrible place on earth. So I believe the two. And what I would say is that if I believe the two, is because the two match. It's not, I don't live that as a paradox. For me, this is what I try to say in The Genius of Judaism. This is what I tried to say in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in front of a reasonably big audience of students. Israel, on liberal standards, according to the standards of the liberal thoughts, should be not far from being despised, should be praised on many regards. And this is, when in this book I speak about Israel, this is exactly what I say. According to liberal standards, Israel is an incredible, great achievement. You can, of course, agree or not agree. In my case, it's more not agree, of course, with the policy of for example, the current government. If I were an Israeli citizen, I would fight to the last sword against the government. But this is not the point. Israel as itself, Israel as a category of, as a political entity, as a metaphysical entity, is something which a liberal should be absolutely proud of. And I say why. In the book, there is a whole chapter. It will be too long to sum it here. I say exactly why.
So in your book also, you write that the glory of Judaism is rooted in the Talmudic traditions of argument and conflict. And you cite one of your intellectual mentors, Emmanuel Levinas, who I should say is not as well known in America as he probably should be among many Jewish audiences. But he talked about the multifaceted aspects of Torah study in a way I think will resonate considering the name of our parent company. So if you can talk a little about the metaphor that he uses and how that applies in your life.
This is what I thought, yeah, when I heard about multi-faces,
70
faces media. It's incredible. It's not only Emmanuel Levinas. It's, I think, the core of the Jewish, of the best of the Jewish thought. This is repeated on and on. You can find it in Rashi. You can find it in Maharal of Prague. You can find it in Haim of Volozhin, and you can find it in Levinas. The fact that to be a Jew means to read the Torah as if it had 70 faces. This is a constant quote of all the masters, all the wise, all the big rabbis of Judaism. Everybody reads the Torah, as they say. The Christians read the Torah, the Muslims read the Torah, the non-believers, the secular read the Torah. But to be Jewish means to read it as if every single verse of it had 70 faces. Means what? Means, number one, that the verse has a face. It is not a rigid, morbid, frozen material. It is a vibrant, living thing. Exactly the opposite of what believe all the dogmatics, all the fanatics who believe that the word, the verse, is something which has been said once and forever. So it has a face. It can be caressed, say some of the rabbis. It can be loved as you can love your wife. It means that the verse has a face. It means, number two, and this is a program for you, I think, as far as I understood with my bad English. Number two, it means that the reader of the verse gets his own face in the process of reading. It means what the rabbis say, what Rashi says, what Emmanuel Levinas says, is that a man, a woman, of course has a face, but gets his or her face in an excellent way, in the supreme way, in the encounter of the reading. Which is a difference with an animal, for example, which is a difference with a Nazi or with a stupid hater of the thought. You get your face in the process of encountering, of fighting with the verse. And it means, number three, and this is the most important according to Emmanuel Levinas, it means that it is not one face for each verse. It is not one face for each of us reading the verse, but it is 70 faces, which is, as you know, the number of the nations composing the humanity. So this means that to be a Jew means read the Torah in order that it has a meaning not only for the Jews, not only for our community, if such a word has a sense, but for the rest of the world. So to read the Torah in a way which gives to each of its breathing its universal sense, this, according to the masters and the wise, is to be properly a Jew.
And I think you make the point that the number 70 corresponds to the number of nations.
That's what I said. The number of nations. Yeah. They could have said 12, for example. No, they say 70. And this is a constant in the Jewish tradition. And it means really that to be a Jew is not a question of community. It's not to deal with ourselves. To be a Jew consists in dealing with the other than ourselves, with the rest of the world. A Jew is never as much a Jew than when she or he deals with the rest of the world. That's what I think. That's what the highest brains of the Jewish tradition believe, and this is what JTA does. When I was asked to deliver these few remarks, frankly very happy and very honored, because for me, JTA means a great thing. The rebirth of JTA now is a great news for an American, but for a European also. This century of JTA corresponding with this revival is a great celebration, but the values embodied by JTA, for me, are match with the best of the Jewish tradition. This openness to the other, this journalistic stuff, by the way. Somebody said at the age of alternative truth and alternative facts, the wisdom, the reliability of JTA throughout the century, I know the work more or less, is something very significant. The relationship between diaspora and Israel, as if it appears in the history of JTA, this bipolarity between the two, this dialectic between the two poles of Jewish life is very remarkable, and JTA never composed with that, never resigned with that, and this sense of otherness, this way of being open to the rest of the world, this is JTA.
Well, that's a charge that you've given us, and I hope you live up to it. The last question I want to ask is looking at your book, that's both an argument against and an argument for. Are you essentially optimistic about Jewish life in your own country, Jewish life around the world?
Yes, you know, it is a fight which is going on since millenaries. One of the things which I say, but we all say, but which I think I demonstrate in my book, is that the idea of eradicate anti-Semitism has no sense. For deep reasons, metaphysical reasons, we will not eradicate anti-Semitism. The relationship between Jews and Democrats with anti-Semitism is a relationship of containment, is a relationship of force, is a sort of arm wrestling in which the adversaries of anti-Semitism have to win and the anti-Semites have to lose. This is the basic situation. And when I hear sometimes people saying we have to erase anti-Semitism, it's good, of course, it's benevolent, but it has no sense. We have to contain and we have to be stronger. What I see today in France and in America, when I see it this night, I know more or less some of the ladies and gentlemen who are in this room. My feeling is that the Jews and the friends of the Jews and the Democrats who know that when you beat a Jew, you kill humanity, are not a minority, are not besieged, are not close to be beaten in this country as is in Europe. So yes, if we keep fighting in a reasonable and calm way, if we continue to be proud of our values in a secular way, which is mine in the genius of Judaism, if we continue not to be shy, the bad fate of the Jewry in Europe was partly due to their shyness, to their self-hatred of Judaism. This is more or less what made them so vulnerable and so disarmed when the worst arrived. So if we keep on all of this, we have reasonable reasons to be optimistic, yes. I'm not a complaining Jew. I'm a proud Jew. I'm a fighter, and in this sense, I'm not pessimistic. No.
I think you can tell we're all glad to hear that. And I want to thank you for a stimulating evening, a stimulating book that's very much worth reading. And thank you so much for being part of our celebration.
Thank you, my friend.